What if the engineers who built your car had one too many coffees, a bottomless budget, and zero fear of being laughed at? What if the result was a record player that skipped on every pothole, a bumper filled with water, or a car that just became a boat? Believe it or not, every single one of those things was real. Today we are counting down 25 of the strangest features ever put into a production car. Features so wild, so ahead of their time, or so gloriously unnecessary that you will absolutely wish they had survived to the present day. Hit like and subscribe because there are cars ahead that your brain is going to need a moment to process. Number 25. The Cord 810's hand-cranked hidden headlights. In 1936, the Cord 810 hid its headlights. Not inside a panel or behind a flap, they retracted fully into the front fenders when not in use. The reason was aerodynamics. The Cord was one of the most streamlined cars of its era, and exposed headlights would have ruined the shape entirely. So instead, they disappeared during daylight hours. The problem? Getting them back out. Each headlight had its own hand crank inside the cockpit. You wound them out manually before dark. Miss a crank, get one stuck, or simply forget. And you were driving blind on one side. The cranks were finicky, the mechanisms fragile, and the whole system required more faith than engineering. But when those pods deployed cleanly and the car gleamed under streetlights, it was a sight unlike anything else on the road. The Cord was only built for 2 years before the company folded in 1937. And with it went one of the strangest, most stylish lighting systems the industry ever produced. Number 24. Nash's Weather Eye. The first car that actually breathed fresh air. Before the 1930s, fresh air in a car meant cracking a window and accepting whatever blew in: dust, exhaust, rain, insects. Nash changed everything in 1938 with a system called the Weather Eye. For the first time, a car had a fully integrated climate ventilation system built directly into the body. The Weather Eye pulled outside air through a grill intake, filtered it, passed it over a heater core, and distributed it throughout the cabin in a controlled flow. No more drafts, no more fumes. Just clean, warm, circulated air from a single dashboard control. Nash advertised it relentlessly and honestly deserved to. Every modern HVAC system in every car on the road today traces its ancestry back to what Nash figured out in a factory in Kenosha, Wisconsin. The Weather Eye is not flashy, it is not glamorous. But it is the reason your morning commute does not smell like a horse-drawn carriage, and that absolutely earns it a spot on this list. Number 23. The Packard air conditioner with no off switch. Here is a sentence you were not expecting. The world's first factory-installed automotive air conditioner had no thermostat, no interior controls, and no way to turn it off without stopping the car. The year was 1939. Packard offered the very first production car air conditioning unit, and it was something. The system cost $259, roughly $6,000 in today's money. It occupied the entire rear half of the trunk. The compressor ran off an engine belt, and to adjust the temperature, you had to pull over, open the hood, and change the belt tension manually. Once it was on, it was on. Passengers sat in a wall of cold air for the entire journey, whether they wanted it or not. Too cold? That was your problem. Packard eventually figured out the controls, and the rest is history. But that original version remains gloriously, almost aggressively, user-hostile, and a reminder that being first and being good are two very different achievements. Number 22. GM's Autronic Eye, the robot that dimmed your headlights. In 1952, General Motors taught a car to watch the road so you did not have to. The Autronic Eye was an automatic headlight dimmer, a small photo tube in a ray gun-shaped housing on the dash, staring permanently forward. When oncoming headlights tripped the sensor, a buzzing array of vacuum tubes in what GM called The electronic brain processed the signal and dropped your high beams automatically. No foot pedal, no hand switch. Just science fiction made real when a home computer was still gymnasium-sized. The system worked surprisingly well, but had quirks. Neon signs triggered it. Reflective road markers sent it into a rapid high-low flickering loop. Curves threw it entirely off. But the concept, decades before modern auto-dimming headlights became standard, was pure genius. In 1960, GM renamed it the Guidematic and refined it further. The original electronic eye, with its vacuum tubes and robot brain watching the dark road ahead, remains one of the most underrated ideas Detroit ever produced. Number 21. The Nash Ambassador's built-in travel bed road motels were not on every corner in the early 1950s. Rest stops were sparse, so if you needed sleep on a long road trip, you were largely on your own unless you drove a Nash Ambassador. Starting in the early 50s, Nash offered an option that allowed the front bench seat to fold completely flat and merge with the rear seat into a full-length bed inside the car. Optional mosquito netting for the windows meant you could sleep with fresh air without the local insect population joining you. Nash marketed this feature hard, and it worked. Families used it for cross-country trips and roadside naps. Courting couples, as history quietly notes, found other uses. The feature faded as roadside accommodation improved, and the car became a commuting tool rather than a mobile home. But the Nash bed was a genuinely brilliant idea. The camper van, the sleeping pod, and the overlanding SUV, all of it, half a century early, available for the price of a station wagon option. Number 20. The DeSoto swivel seat that accidentally ejected a journalist. In 1959, Chrysler introduced swivel front seats in the DeSoto. Open the door, the seat rotated outward to meet you. Entry and exit made effortless. The seats were connected by cable to the door, so the movements were mechanically linked. Chrysler marketed them to women in pencil skirts, who genuinely struggled with low-slung cars of the era. It was practical and clever, until it was not. During a press event for the 1960 lineup, a journalist in the passenger seat reached for what he thought was the window lever. It was the door handle, at speed. The door swung open, the cable activated, the seat rotated, and the journalist was deposited onto the track in front of the assembled automotive press. Chrysler canceled the cable mechanism the same day. Some cars had already been delivered with the cables laid under carpet but disconnected. Those cars are now collector's items, and the lesson presumably was to label your levers very clearly. Number 19. The Edsel Teletouch. Gear shifts in the steering wheel hub. Ford spent $250 million developing the Edsel, one of the worst automotive launches in American history. Buried in that catastrophe, however, it was a genuinely fascinating idea, the Teletouch transmission. Instead of a shift lever, the Edsel put gear selection buttons directly in the center hub of the steering wheel, the spot normally occupied by the horn. Park, reverse, neutral, drive, and low. 5 buttons on a hub engineered to stay stationary while the wheel turned around it. In theory, you never had to move your hand from the wheel to change gears. In practice, drivers kept accidentally pressing park at speed, locking the transmission. Others confused the gear buttons for the horn at intersections. The Teletouch was dropped after the 1958 model year, but the concept, controls integrated into the steering wheel center, lived on in every paddle shifter and steering-mounted drive mode button that followed. Number 18, the Chrysler Highway Hi-Fi. A record player that skipped every pothole. 1956. Eisenhower was president, rock and roll had just arrived, and Chrysler decided drivers needed a built-in record player. The Highway Hi-Fi, developed with CBS/Columbia, was installed in select Chrysler, Dodge, DeSoto, and Plymouth models. It played proprietary 7-inch records, a dedicated catalog you had to rebuy just for the car. In luxury models with smooth suspension, it worked beautifully. In the affordable models, every pothole launched the needle, every rough patch scratched the record. Every cobblestone street turned your Frank Sinatra collection into static. Chrysler tried a slower spinning format to help the needle track, but nothing saved the concept. The highway hi-fi was quietly discontinued within a couple of years. The dream of in-car audio never died. The 8-track, cassette, CD, and eventually streaming all chased the same idea Chrysler attempted in '56. They were simply about 60 years ahead of the road quality required to make it work. Number 17. The Studebaker Wagonair's Sliding Steel Roof, 1963. Studebaker, already circling the drain financially, introduced something genuinely revolutionary. A station wagon with a sliding rear roof panel. The Wagonair, based on the Lark, had a steel panel over the cargo area that could be hand-cranked forward, opening the entire rear section of the roof. You could transport a standing refrigerator, stand up through the top at the drive-in, haul furniture no closed wagon could accommodate. Studebaker called it 3 cars in one, a wagon, a sedan, and something approaching a convertible. The concept was decades ahead of the GMC Envoy XUV, which offered a powered version of the exact same idea in 2004 and described it as unprecedented, apparently forgetting Studebaker entirely. The Wagonair's problem was water. The roof leaked. The drainage channels clogged, the seals failed, and Studebaker lacked the resources to fully fix them. Negative word of mouth spread quickly. By 1966, Studebaker was gone, but the concept, still brilliant. Number 16. Mercury's Breezeway, the rear window that rolled away. Before factory air conditioning was standard, ventilation was a serious engineering problem. Mercury solved it in 1963 with the Breezeway. Full-size Mercury models adopted a reverse slant roofline, and built into that backlight was a power-operated center section of glass that dropped completely down into the body at the touch of a switch. The result was natural through-flow ventilation. Air swept from the front vents across the cabin and out through the open rear window. No buffeting, no wind noise. Smokers cleared a car in seconds. Dog owners adored it. Mercury sold over 92,000 Breezeway models in 1963 alone. But as factory air conditioning became affordable through the mid-60s, the feature's appeal evaporated. By 1968, it was gone. And every driver since has been cracking the window 2 inches and getting buffeted by wind noise, which is simply not the same thing. On number 15, Ford Thunderbird's swing-away steering wheel. Getting in and out of a low-slung 1960s coupe was rarely elegant. Ford addressed this in 1961 with the Thunderbird's optional swing-away steering column. When you placed the car in park, the entire column, wheel and all, glided 10 inches to the right, giving even the most formally dressed driver an unobstructed path in and out of the seat. Shift out of park, and the column returned smoothly to driving position. The mechanism was tied to the gear selector, so the wheel physically could not move while the car was in motion. Ford later extended the feature to the full-size Galaxy and refined it into the tilt-away column. By the end of the decade, tightening safety standards made the system too complex to certify, and it quietly disappeared. It solved a problem most people had never articulated, but immediately understood the moment they saw it. And watching that steering wheel glide out of the way when you parked was, and remains, deeply satisfying. Number 14. The Subaru Brat's backward bed seats. The Subaru Brat bi-drive recreational all-terrain transporter was a compact pickup truck built on a car platform, sold in America from 1978. It was practical and capable. But its most memorable feature was also its most insane: 2 rear-facing seats bolted directly into the open cargo bed. Passengers sat in the truck bed, facing backward, with heads above the roofline, no roof overhead, and no windshield, No seatbelts, just two people in lawn chairs, watching the road disappear behind them at highway speed. This was a factory option. And the reason for it was pure accounting genius. With those seats installed, the Brat was legally a passenger car rather than a pickup truck, exempting it from the 25% chicken tax tariff on imported light trucks. Subaru saved millions. Passengers risked considerably more. Ronald Reagan owned a Brat and reportedly loved driving it around his ranch. Whether he let guests ride in those bed seats is, perhaps mercifully, not recorded. Number 13, the Chrysler turbine car that ran on tequila. In 1963, Chrysler built 55 turbine-powered cars and distributed them to ordinary American families for real-world testing. Instead of a piston engine, they used gas turbines spinning at over 45,000 revolutions per minute, producing a high-pitched whine exactly like a small jet aircraft idling in your driveway. The turbines could run on diesel, jet fuel, kerosene, heating oil, vegetable oil, and in one documented case, tequila, when a Mexican dignitary borrowed a car and fueled it locally with agave spirits. The turbine got terrible mileage, produced significant heat, and was slow to respond to throttle. But it started on anything and needed almost no conventional engine maintenance. Chrysler destroyed most of the test cars to avoid import duty complications. 9 survived. Jay Leno owns one. It sounds exactly like a small aircraft and runs on tequila. The sentence, jet fuel car, should have caught on. It did not, and that remains a genuine loss. Number 12, the AMC Levi's denim interior, 1976. America was in a denim obsession. Bell-bottoms, denim jackets, denim everything. And American Motors Corporation, never a brand to miss a cultural moment, asked the question nobody else dared. What if the inside of a car was a pair of jeans? In partnership with Levi Strauss, AMC offered an interior package for the Gremlin and the Pacer that upholstered the seats and door panels in denim-look vinyl, complete with copper-colored rivets and orange top stitching designed to mimic actual Levi's seams. It looked exactly like what it sounds like. Someone had reupholstered an economy car using their wardrobe. AMC marketed it enthusiastically as a lifestyle statement. A surprising number sold. Today those cars are collector's items sought specifically because of the interior. AMC understood it could not out-budget GM or Ford, so it decided to outweird them instead. Whether you wanted your car to feel like your favorite pair of pants is a different philosophical question, but they absolutely committed to it. Number 11. The water balloon safety bumper. What if, instead of solid steel, your car's bumpers were filled with water? In the 1960s, inventor Hydro developed what were called hydro cushion cells, bumper inserts made of vinyl chambers filled with water. The science was sound. Water cannot be compressed. In a collision, it absorbs impact energy and distributes it outward through the vinyl chambers, drastically reducing peak shock transferred to the vehicle. Think hitting a water balloon instead of a brick wall. The system was installed on taxicabs in New York City and San Francisco and tested in real conditions. The results were impressive. Fender benders that would have caused serious structural damage left water bumper cabs almost untouched. Hydro cushion cells worked. They never reached mass production. Cost, complexity, and the prospect of frozen bumpers in winter all played a role. But the idea was sound and remains one of the great what-ifs of automotive safety history. Properly engineered water bumpers might have changed the entire economics of minor accident repair. Number 10. The Toyota van's built-in ice maker. The year was 1984. Ronald Reagan was president. Miami Vice had just premiered, and Toyota decided that what the family van needed was ice. The Toyota van, a boxy forward cab minivan sold through the late 80s, offered an optional feature in its LE trim that sounds like a fever dream, a factory-installed ice maker. Shoebox-sized, tucked under the front dashboard within reach of the front passenger. Connected directly to the air conditioning lines for cooling power, equipped with its own miniature ice trays. Fill it with water, let the AC lines chill it, and a few hours later, ice cubes, in a car, ready for your beverages. The ice maker operated only while the engine was off, which did limit its utility somewhat during actual driving. Toyota discontinued the van and the feature along with it by the late 80s. It never returned. And honestly, that is a loss. A van with a built-in ice supply is simply a better van than one without. Number 9. The Pontiac Aztek's built-in camping tent. The Pontiac Aztek is widely, consistently, and fairly regarded as one of the ugliest production cars ever built. Its proportions were awkward. Its design looked like several different vehicles had been welded together by someone working blindfolded. And yet it had one feature so genuinely useful, it transcended the overall disaster: a factory-available camping tent that attached directly to the rear hatch, creating a fully enclosed sleeping space connected to the cargo area. An optional inflatable mattress, sized to fit the interior exactly, turned the whole thing into a legitimate one-car campsite. Drive to the campground, open the hatch, deploy the tent, inflate the mattress, sleep. The Aztek was discontinued after 2005, widely unmourned. But its camping system was ahead of everything the overlanding market would spend the following 2 decades reinventing at great expense. Had that tent been on any other better-looking vehicle, it might have been iconic. Number 8. The Fiat 500L's built-in espresso machine. Italy has strong opinions about coffee. This is not a stereotype. It is a documented national priority. So perhaps it was inevitable that an Italian automaker would eventually decide the car itself should make espresso. In 2013, Fiat partnered with Lavazza and installed an actual espresso machine in the dashboard of the 500L. The machine used Lavazza coffee pods and produced a genuine single-shot espresso with crema, not watered-down drip coffee, in a small cup at the dashboard of a compact Italian hatchback. For safety reasons, the machine operated only when the engine was off. You had to park the car to make coffee, which does raise the question of what problem was actually being solved, since if you are parked, presumably a cafe is nearby. But the sheer conviction that a car should have a coffee machine inside it is so magnificently Italian that it demands inclusion here. The Fiat 500L has since been discontinued. The espresso machine went with it. The loss is real. Number 7. The Volvo that could detect a heartbeat. Most early 2000s car security systems worked by detecting motion or broken glass. Volvo decided that was not nearly enough. The Volvo S80 offered a heartbeat sensor, using the same basic technology found in medical monitoring equipment to detect the tiny air displacement caused by a human heartbeat. As the key holder approached the vehicle, the system scanned the interior. If someone was hiding inside, under a seat in the footwell, waiting silently. The sensor detected the rhythmic vibration of their breathing and sent an alert to the key fob. The car told you before you got in that you were not alone. Volvo marketed it to urban drivers and security-conscious owners. The press described it as something from a spy film, which it essentially was. Public take-up was limited, and Volvo retired the feature by the mid-2000s. A car that could feel a person breathing inside it remains one of the most extraordinary production options ever placed in a showroom brochure. Number 6. The Rolls-Royce that keeps an umbrella in its door. Rolls-Royce has built an identity on solving problems you did not know existed. In 2003, with the launch of the Phantom, they introduced the door-sill umbrella. Each rear door contained a hollow channel built into the sill, and inside that channel lived a full-size bespoke umbrella. Open the door to exit, and the handle was immediately accessible, so a Rolls-Royce owner would never, under any circumstances, Step into rain without shelter. Each umbrella costs approximately $700. The storage channel includes its own ventilation and gentle heating, designed to dry a wet umbrella before the next use. Rolls-Royce describes the door umbrella not as a novelty, but as an expression of the brand's core philosophy, that every conceivable inconvenience has been anticipated and solved in advance. The feature is still offered today on the Phantom, the Cullinan, and other models. It is the single most expensive solution to a little rain that the automotive world has ever produced. And honestly, that is exactly correct. Number 5. The Bentley built specifically for falconers. At some point, someone at Bentley's Mulliner Bespoke division asked in a meeting, "What does a professional falconer need from a luxury SUV?" And instead of laughing, everyone in the room answered the question seriously. The result was the Bentayga Falconry Edition, GPS bird tracking equipment. Dedicated leather gauntlets stored in a purpose-built cabinet, a removable transportation perch topped with artificial grass, built directly into the center armrest, a complete set of bird maintenance tools, and as the centerpiece of the interior, a marquetry inlay crafted from 430 individual pieces of precisely matched wood. He assembled over 9 full working days by a single craftsperson. Bentley declined to disclose the price. Their statement, "If you are buying a bespoke Bentayga, the cost is simply just another number. People bought this car. They exist in the world. They fly Hawks from a Bentley." This is the most specific production feature ever offered to a niche market, and it is absolutely magnificent. Number 4. The Tucker 48's Cyclops Eye. Preston Tucker refused to accept that cars had to be built the way they had always been built. In 1948, the Tucker 48 introduced adaptive headlights, a technology that would not become standard in premium automobiles for another 50 years. The Tucker had 3 headlights. 2 were fixed on the outer fenders. The third, mounted in the center of the grille, was connected to the steering column by mechanical linkage. Turn the wheel. The center light turned with it, illuminating the curve ahead. Tucker called it the Cyclops Eye. Pure aviation engineering applied to a sedan in 1948. Some states refused to certify it because regulations required headlights to point forward, not sideways around corners. Only 51 Tucker 48s were ever built before financial collapse, and Tucker believed deliberate sabotage by Detroit's established manufacturers ended the company. The Cyclops Eye went with them. Modern adaptive headlights arrived half a century later. Tucker had the concept on day 1. Number 3. The Ford Skyliner's disappearing steel roof in 1957. Ford introduced the Fairlane 500 Skyliner, a full-size hardtop whose steel roof mechanically folded into the trunk at the touch of a button. 7 separate electric motors operated in a timed sequence. 1 unlocked the trunk, 1 lifted the lid, 1 folded the lid flat, 2 released the roof locks, 1 pulled the entire steel roof backward into the trunk, and the 7th pivoted a visor section into place. The full transformation took 58 seconds. Here is the detail that completes the picture. Once retracted, you could not open the trunk manually. To retrieve a bag, you had to initiate the full sequence, stop at midpoint once the lid was up, then reverse the entire process. Ford spent over $2 million developing the system and sold it for 3 model years before giving up. It remains the most mechanically complex production car roof ever built and the most inconvenient trunk in automotive history. Number 2. The Rolls-Royce with a gold toilet under the rear seat. In 1954, American businessman Joseph Masciuch commissioned Italian coach builder Alfredo Vignale to customize a Rolls-Royce Silver Wraith. The engine bay was painted green. Visible pipes were chrome-plated. A full bar occupied the rear compartment, and underneath the right rear passenger seat, invisible until the cushion was lifted, was a fully functional toilet with a gold seat and a mechanism for discharging its contents through the floor while the vehicle was moving. Mashut insisted publicly and repeatedly that the compartment was used exclusively as a champagne cooler. This is a perfectly reasonable explanation that nobody believed at the time, and nobody believes now. The car was a one-of-a-kind commission, displayed and documented for decades. Whether it served as a champagne cooler or its technically intended purpose is information history has chosen not to record. We will leave that to your imagination. Number 1. The Amphicar 770, the car that became a boat. German engineer Hans Trippel unveiled the Amphicar 770 at the 1961 New York Auto Show. It looked like an ordinary compact convertible, 4 wheels, drove like a car. Then you reached the water, sealed the doors, engaged twin rear propellers, and the car became a boat. The front wheels acted as rudders. Top speed on road, 70 miles per hour. Top speed on water, 7 knots, roughly 8 miles per hour. Adequate car, very slow boat. It rusted where water collected in the body seams and handled neither environment particularly well. Around 3,878 were built through 1968. President Lyndon B. Johnson owned one at his Texas ranch and used it for a single beloved routine. He would drive guests toward the pond at the property's edge, screaming that the brakes had failed. Guests panicked every single time. Johnson never tired of it. The Amphicar was neither a great car nor a great boat. But it was absolutely the greatest prank vehicle in presidential history, and nothing else on this list even comes close. And there you have it. 25 of the strangest, most brilliant, most gloriously over-engineered features ever to roll off a production line. What? From a record player that skipped on every pothole to a presidential prank boat disguised as a compact car, the history of the automobile is full of engineers who refuse to accept that cars should be boring. Which one would you bring back today? Drop your answer in the comments below. If you enjoyed the ride, go ahead and like and subscribe, and we will see you next time.